Hey there, Latin 3. I'm here talking to you today about relative clauses of characteristic and relative clauses of purpose. So they're basically both constructed the same way, but you start to see the difference. Okay, about 90% of the time it'll be a relative clause of characteristic. Now, if you've got your list, if it has a cum, if it has an ut, if it has a ne, there's two spots. I think it's somewhere around 11 or 12. Again, I wish that I had the list with me. But there's two spots that they will be a relative clause of purpose and then a relative clause of characteristic. I think it's like 12 and 13 or 11 or 12 or something like that. So here's how it works. A relative clause of characteristic or a relative clause of purpose. It essentially is only covering, the book only covers characteristic, okay? But Caesar uses a lot of purpose, so you have to deal with both. And the formula is essentially relative pronoun plus the subjunctive. That's all, okay? So relative pronoun plus the subjunctive. And here's how it kind of plays out, because it does change the translation, because we are doing all good English from here on out. Like the gerunds and gerundives, you needed some bad English to understand the grammar, but here it's pretty clear. So we'll do the first one. This is a relative clause of characteristic. Mater mea femina erat quae in via ambularet. My mom was the type of woman who would walk in the road. Okay, so you'll see there that the quae is a relative pronoun. It's referring back to my mom. It's the subject of that particular clause. It doesn't have to be. You could certainly use any number, case, and gender, but remember it has to match the number and gender of its antecedent. But who would walk? Not the type, not the woman who walks. The type of woman who would walk. And the difference there is very simple. Okay, who is that dog who is barking? What is the type of dog that would bark? The first one is telling you a thing that is true. The second one is telling you a characteristic of a person. It is therefore ephemeral. It is potential. It is not entirely real because it's not currently happening. So my mother is the type of woman who would walk in the road. That is a subjunctive. That is not quite real. And you still want to stick to sequence of tense, okay? But she is the type who would. And notice I color-coded. So the type of woman who is all folded into quae. Would walk, there's your subjunctive, in the road. Now, that is relative clause of characteristic, okay? And if we're in class together, I'll let you listen to a song that deals with that. Now let's talk about relative clause of purpose, and that's this one right down here. Caesar militem ad imicos misit qui numquam resideat. Caesar sent a soldier toward the enemies who would never quit. Okay? So, a couple things that are different here. He sent that soldier, not the type of person who would never quit, but for the purpose that he would never quit. So he sent that particular soldier who will never quit, so that he will not quit. Okay? So it's a relative clause of purpose. All right? Very often when it deals with military stuff, you're going to see relative clauses of purpose. Very often when it deals with anything else, you'll see relative clauses of characteristic. So it's rare that you'll see a relative clause of purpose, but I wanted you to be armed against it. It will not show up in the book at all. It will only show up as characteristic in the book. So when you parse from the book, it will all be characteristic. But when we do later readings, then it will include relative clauses of purpose. Like when you send somebody to go do something. You send somebody who will go do it, right? That's more purpose. You send him so that he would do that. So there you go. That is your relative clauses of purpose. And we now return. Oh, actually, real quick, now that we've done the relative clause of purpose, I should probably give you assignments out of the book that deal specifically with that. So if you turn to page 130, it talks about relative clauses of characteristic. And then go ahead and do 65 little a. And parse all of your subjunctives. Then do 65 lil b. And 65 little b will really help you to understand the difference. And again, send these to me when you are done. Then go ahead and do 65 lil c. Same deal. Parse it out. Okay, parse them all out from here on out. Don't worry about 65 lil d. And then when you are done with that, go ahead and do review 16 lil c. Parse them out again, okay? So 65 lil a, lil b, lil c, and then review 16 lil c. And then we'll get back to the translations, all right? I'm going to hit the button.